I'm excited to dig in, Todd. I'm so happy that we actually got to meet in person for the first time a month or two ago in Chicago. Got to get some dinner, shoot the shit, get to know you on a personal level. So that was pretty cool, man.
How long have we known each other and been interacting too? Because you're one of those people that when I met you, it didn't feel like it was the first time too, which is cool.
Yeah.
And that's not meant to be cheesy, but I think this whole environment has just brought people together that it
Yep.
was like, hey, there he is, cool. Like actually,
Yep.
it's been a long time.
Yeah, I think it's been 3 or 4 years. Probably
It
4
might
years,
be
probably
more
maybe
because I
maybe four
think
or
you
five.
and I did. So you did like a webinar back when the whole world shut
Oh,
down for COVID,
yep.
and it was about like selling through uncertainty. So that's
Yeah.
5 years ago.
That's 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Damn. So, we're going to talk about a topic today that I have personally learned a lot from you. Not that you've coached me in this topic necessarily. Um, you've put out so much great content on negotiating, and I use a lot of these practices. So, for the listener, what we talked about before this is we're going to do a little bit of troubleshooting for Jason in this call. We're going to talk about some of that stuff. We're going to talk about Todd's new book, and I think a good place to start is like the history of negotiating is a really fascinating one because you're such a history buff with sales, which I love. The second one is it sounds like this has not always been a skill set that reps needed to have back in the day. So like take us back. Like why is negotiating even a thing that we have to teach now?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And I just made this discovery. So, for anybody that doesn't know, when cool people are doing cool things on the weekends, I'm ear deep in late 1800s, early 1900s books and magazines on sales and sales leadership. I'm
Oh,
surrounded here by hundreds of books and magazines, and I've got a fully restored phone from 1908. Like, I got a problem. Like, I'm
I
waiting
got to
for the
make a cold
intervention.
call on that thing, dude.
Well,
That's
yeah,
that's my
and
next call.
literally
Yeah.
the bell rings on it, like it's got it. So we can make some calls on it later. But um, one of the things that I was recently asked, and it was from Professor Robert Peterson at Indiana University, the Kelley School of Business, reached out to me and he's like, Todd, you talk so much about the founding of the sales profession, late 1800s, early 1900s, and the people that were responsible for that, like John Patterson at NCR and Arthur Sheldon, and there's so many like that. Where are the negotiation experts from back then? And like, I
Mm,
literally couldn't find any. And then I figured out why. And I also have a pretty profound statement to make here. So buckle up for that. But
yeah.
the point is that when all of a sudden the Industrial Revolution started, so all of a sudden people started to be able to build stuff at scale. You had sales organizations pop up, right? That you dedicated territories, variable comp. You had to hire salespeople for your teams. You had to train them. And basically, just like salespeople game compensation plans, companies game the law. And at the time, they were like, the railroads. They would partner up with each other and build these trusts. So they would say, hey, listen, I'll take the Western US, you take the Eastern. We won't compete and we'll charge exorbitant prices for everything. I'm like, all right, cool.
Mm.
Like this collaboration that created monopolies. And so you needed the Sherman Antitrust Act in the 1800s to block that. And then they gamed that, and we needed an add on. Well, what had happened later is that the big guys were pricing out the small guys. And so they were buying and producing at such bulk and such efficiency that they could charge less to customers than the small businesses could even get the materials for. So they were
Mm.
basically, the big guys were just crushing the small guys. So legislation was put in place that set a floor for what manufacturers could sell their prices for. As a result, that meant that salespeople essentially didn't have a race to the bottom issue like we often have today.
Yeah.
Negotiating on price didn't really matter because the government had already done that and manufacturers had set that price. It was called fair trade. Now, fast forward to the 1970s, you had a lot of talk about fair trade. Who's that fair to? That's fair to the businesses, not to the consumers. So
Mm.
let's open it up. So 1975, there was a Consumer Protection Act that nullified all the fair trade stuff. Literally overnight, salespeople went from basically not needing negotiating skills to needing them really fast. And so
Yeah.
there was guys like Chester Karras who had written negotiating books in the early 1970s that filled the gap temporarily. But then in 1981, there's a book called Getting to Yes. And the authors of that were the ones that really founded the idea of BATNA, like best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It's funny that I read that and I'm like, we're still negotiating in those exact same terms.
Yeah.
1981. So what, that wasn't a math major, 44, 45 years ago. We're still using, like, all the stuff you read on negotiating today is still based on that original foundation. We've sped up and adjusted so many things in the sales world.
Yeah.
Negotiation got stuck 40 years ago. And so I'll pause there and then I've got a profound statement to make. So what do you got?
What are some of those things? I haven't read that book actually. What are some of the things that they say that are in that book that are sort of antiquated now?
Well, it's all the concepts that you think about in terms of, I don't know if you've ever been in a company where they do that role play where you get a buyer and a seller, and the buyer's given information, the seller's given information, then you sit down and you got to come to the best deal, right? And
Hmm.
we're hiding stuff where we've got, like, what's our floor, and it's
Yeah.
all of that kind of negotiating that's basically founded in lying to each other,
It's
in
manipulation.
withholding the
Yeah.
truth, in bluffing.
Yeah.
It's like a Texas Hold'em poker
Yeah.
tournament.
Yep.
Listen, don't send Chris Voss out on me, but I think it's weird that we need a different personality to negotiate than we do to sell anyway, and that's always been
Yep.
the case since the 1970s. Meaning, sales was about building relationship and focusing on customer outcomes. Like, we get them all the way to the goal line. Jason, cool. Like, hey, you want to go? Awesome. Perfect. I'm going to start lying to you now. I'm not going to tell you what a good deal is. I'm going to
Hmm.
focus on my outcomes now instead of yours. And I
Yep.
learned everything I know from former FBI hostage negotiators. Like, what? We don't get to
Yeah.
tase customers, especially in this as a service environment. The deal is an early milestone on the path
Hmm.
to having customers who buy, stay, buy more, and advocate. I just don't think it's sustainable to do what's always been done, which is negotiate your heart out, and every customer is paying a different amount based on how well or poorly the negotiation went. The proliferation of information and AI makes that unsustainable anyway. And so those are the foundational elements, are how you think of negotiating today. Change personalities, hide the truth, and hey, come at me, bro, see what you can get.
Oh man. I feel like, okay, before we go down that tangent, because there's some common myths I think that we should bust.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
before we do, I want to make
yeah.
that one profound statement
Yep.
just for everybody. In this world of AI, we're like, oh, the world of sales has never changed so much before. And we say that about e-commerce. We said that about the internet. We said that about email. We said that about the telephone. We say it over and over again. I would argue, and DM me, whatever, I believe from reading through history that government legislation has changed selling more dramatically and more fast throughout history over and over again than technology ever has. All right, so I'm just going to
Yeah.
leave that little grenade on the table, and we can people can come at me for that one. But Antitrust Act of the 1800s changed selling dramatically. The Clayton
Yeah.
Act, 1914, and the FTC dramatically overnight. 1930s, like all of this stuff. It's amazing how all of a sudden salespeople were like, "Oh crap! I need a whole new
Yeah.
skill set." Overnight because of government legislation, not because of technology. So
Well,
anyway,
dude,
we
this
can move
is,
on.
I mean, like, I 100% agree with you on this. Like, when I think about outbound, I think of FTC and the do not call list.
Yep,
Dude,
that
it's
changed
like
a lot.
83% of America, I was just looking, it's even more now, is on the do not call registry. And it's starting to like make its way into B2B, where I feel like there's this gray area
Mhm.
where the data providers, they want to give you the option to not call people on the DNC. I don't know, it's a little gray. But then there's like all of the stuff with like the EU around GDPR and just
Yeah,
like,
and can't
you're totally
spam,
right, man.
right?
Yeah.
Like all of that stuff. I mean, to your point about do not call registry, um, that's part of the reason I have that phone up there, is because Alexander Graham Bell would be rolling over if he knew that. I think it was 2022. There was over 221 million phone numbers on it too. Like, it's crazy how people took his gift and went, "Here you go," and salespeople just ruined it, like we did
Oh, it's
email, and
crazy.
like we're starting to do with AI already. But that's a rant for another day.
So, okay. So as we start to get into this, before we unpack like the four levers and kind of like the how to around this, I think the biggest fear, if I'm putting myself in the seat of the rep, when I'm thinking about the big deals I've negotiated, it's, am I going to get bullied around by this company or this procurement team? And to be honest with you, it's not happened a single time to me.
Mhm.
Almost every single time, like if I'm getting bullied around, it's probably because I don't have a senior enough person outside of the procurement team that really cares about this that can just veto anything the procurement team's going to do.
Mhm.
I'm just curious your thoughts on that because I think that's a fear that reps have where they're like, well, okay, I have to hide certain things. I have to lie because like they're going to try to bully me around and take advantage of us, like, dog eat dog world kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, how it was always said that if you are in the forest and you come across a bear, that you shouldn't show fear. That they can sense fear and they will pummel you, right? Like, because if you're
Yeah.
scared or whatever, they like, well, why does that happen? Well, mammals, they can actually smell fear. And the thing is that when they do, they actually mirror fear. I know this sounds crazy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you're scared, the bear gets scared. And now, if the bear gets scared, what do? Like us, fight or flight. You don't want them to
Yep.
fight you. And so that whole feeling of confidence, like if you're confident about a bear, the bear will actually sense that. And as a result, you've seen videos on Instagram and all that of people like hanging out with bears, right? Because they're like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Well, we as human beings can smell fear. And when we do, that part of our brain also lights up along with it. And so I'm a believer that so much of our problem in the way that we deliver pricing and the way that propose pricing is through this element of fear, where we call it a
Mm.
proposal. Like, here you go, Jason, right? Like, if it's too much, just let me know, right? And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, we've told the customer right out of the gate, hey, listen, the price isn't the price. And then we make it worse that the minute they ask for anything, let's say it's our pricing is based on net 30 payment terms, and the
Mm-hmm.
customer says, our standard's net 60. You're going to have to do net 60, and we immediately go, you know what? I can do net 45 without even asking. And we basically just
Yeah.
told the buyer, listen, the price isn't really the price. All you got to know is what to ask for, and we've opened the floodgates to it. That's part of what the concept and the power of four levers negotiating is, being able to deliver in a confident way. Hey, listen, here's our price. Here's what it's based on. Here are the four variables within it. And you can deliver it to the person that gets coffee to for the janitor, to finance, to procurement, to your buyer, to the CEO. The price is the price consistently. Those are the levers. Negotiate your own deal. And to your point, happens all the time where, like, just recently, I'm working on a sales kickoff contract, and the customer last minute was like, hey, we need everything to be net 60. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, tell me about it. Why? All right, good. My pricing is based on these four things, one of which is how fast you pay. My business is predicated on aligning payment to delivery. So if you want net 60, you can have it, but we're going to have to change something else to make up for it. And they were immediately like, not a big deal. We'll just do net 30. Right? Like, just the
Yeah. They
idea
just
that
wanted
you're
to see what they
confident in the
could get.
delivery. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Why not? That's what any smart buyer would do. You would ask. I mean, like
Right.
even like us being a small business, when we negotiate with stuff, I'm always asking, like, can we delay payment? Can we just do half upfront instead of full? It's just
Yeah,
you're
you got to
always,
ask. Right.
yeah,
Every for-profit business. So I'll share the four levers for everybody here real quick.
yeah,
Every for-profit business is driven by four things. Right? Number one is how much stuff people buy and commit to buying from you, whether it's products, services, technology. So volume is the first one. Buy more, better. Buy less, not as good, right? And that should be reflected in the price. Number two, the timing of cash, or how fast you pay. Every for-profit business in the world likes money. Who knew? The faster you pay, the better. The slower you pay, not as good. Should be reflected
yep,
in the price. Number three, the length of commitment, or how long you commit to the products, technology, services. Commit longer, better. Commit not as long, not as good. That should be reflected in the price. And then number four is the timing of the deal. But this is not your, hey, this weekend only, Banana Republic 40% off. It's predictability. Timing of the deal is about you and your business being able to predict so that you can invest, so you can resource, so you know what's coming. And so that one is about mutual alignment, not fake urgency that you create by fake expiring discounts. Those are the four,
Yeah.
right? Every for-profit company. Now, to your point, every buyer, though, individual buyer, would love the opposite, right? We'd like to commit to as little as possible, pay as slow as possible, commit to the shortest period of time possible, and sign whenever the hell we want. And so that's
Yeah.
part of this collaboration here is these are the
Yeah.
four. If you want to pull a lever, you got to push one. If you want to pull one, you got to push
Yeah.
one, right? And it's collaborative, but it's cards face up, consistent, but flexibility within the drivers of every for-profit
Yeah.
business.
So, okay, love that. So volume, timing of payment, length of commitment, and then flexibility.
Well,
So,
so it's volume, timing of cash, so payment, length of commitment, and then number 4 is the timing of the deal, which is mutual alignment around timing.
timing of the deal.
Yes, exactly.
So, if we kind of step back from that for a second, there's a couple of key strategies it sounds like that are pretty important here. So, are you then suggesting that let's assume that the buyer is going to ask for stuff going
Yeah.
into this, and I should prepare in advance when someone asks for a discount? I know exactly what I'm going to ask for in return. So there's not a firm no discounting policy. It's let's assume that there will be discounts and build this in. What would make that a win for us and what we're going to ask for in return? Is that kind of like the key strategy?
Well,
One of
the
the
key
key
strategy
strategies behind this?
is playing the cards face up and let them negotiate their own deal. Because, like we said, they're
Yeah.
going to want to commit to as little as possible, pay slowly. They want to
Yeah.
pay as little as possible, commit to the shortest period of time possible. So the price is the price with flexibility within the levers. And here's what I mean. I with every client that I coach and teach on this, it's establish that baseline. What are your customers paying? Right? If you're a startup, I get it, right? But some of these clients, I've got one client that's got 30,000 customers, and yet they're having battles for every negotiation. I'm like, you got 30,000 customers that are paying you an amount. Figure out what that value is and figure out what it's based on. So the price per head is X, right? There's volume tiers. So that's lever number 1. So commit to more stuff, better. Your pricing is based on upfront annual payments, net 30, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. Your pricing is based on a minimum of a 1-year commitment, right? Yes. All right. And then when we get down to it, you as an organization would love to be able to predict and forecast accurately, right? Give the customer some skin in the game on that. And so that's where you start. And then I'm an advocate for delivering that in the first conversation, right? You can walk in. I mean, the term sticker shock, first of all, has never been associated with anything good
Yeah.
in the history of humankind. But to be able to walk in and say, hey, listen, based on your environment and our understanding so far, your investment's probably going to be between X and Y. And that's based on the volume component. And oh, by the way, it's based on upfront annual net 30 payments and a minimum of a 1-year commitment. Now, as we go through this process, we'll get much more granular. I might be off in my assumptions, but if that's way off of your expectations, let's talk about that now versus later. Because if you're talking about a 6-figure solution to a 4-figure buyer, one of you is in the wrong conversation or vice versa. I literally,
Yeah.
I just had this happen. I had a startup reach out and they're like, hey, we're having a sales kickoff. We'd love to have you come down to Texas and we'll do this program and everything. And I was like, before we get there, here's my pricing. It's going to be between X and Y based on these variables. And if that's way off, let's talk about that now. And they were like, yeah, that's way off. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Right. And they're like, we can't wait until we build up the business so we can do that. But what just happened? We left the conversation based on trust. I lost a deal I was going to lose anyway, just really fast. Right. Which is
Yeah.
the second best thing to winning.
100%. I mean, we even advertise our price on the contact page when someone signs up. Like I want
Yeah.
people to know
Pre-qualify.
what they're walking into for sure.
Right. Exactly.
So the key idea here is you want to set up the levers in advance so that the customer can choose their own destiny.
Exactly. And
So I love
do
that.
it often to where
Yeah.
during renewals, during upsells, during cross sells. I had one customer once during a renewal was like, Todd, what can you do? I need some help. And I was like,
Yeah.
Harvey, how long have you known me? And he's like, is it the effing levers again? I'm like, yeah, it's the levers. He's like, tell me what they are. And he ended up negotiating his own deal where he paid us faster and his renewal was 3 years instead of 1 year. It's like, hey, we got
Yeah.
value for every dollar we gave away in the form of a
Yeah.
discount. And he not only stayed for those 3 years, but he was a reference. He bought more. And when he left and went to his next company, we were his first call. So, like, you got to think long term on this stuff too.
Love it. So another question I have is, when does the negotiation start? And where I'm going with that is, when you're meeting with people that aren't really like it, when it's early in the deal and you aren't really met with that like executive sponsor, you aren't even threaded yet with the economic buyer, you don't even know who any of these people are, and they start talking price and want to whittle you down on stuff. What do you do in that situation? Does the negotiation start? Like, I think people like to talk about the negotiation like it's a call that gets set up specifically to
Right.
do this, and oftentimes it's like it's never works like that in my experience. Where if I, especially if I do have the right person, it's exactly, they just start talking about it, and like I have to like kind of like, you know, I have to prepare for that in advance and know that, right? So I asked a bunch of questions in there, but really, like, when does the negotiation start for you? And like, what do you do in situations where you're starting to talk to people about stuff that you know kind of don't really sign off on it? They certainly influence it, of course,
Mhm.
but how do you think about that?
Well, there's a number of ways. And my bad analogy is like for anybody that's ever run a marathon is an event. Like it happens on a day. You show up, there's
Yeah.
fanfare, right? But if you show up for the marathon by going, hey, I got some new shoes. It's a nice day. I'm going to go run. You might be dead by mile 12, right? So
Yeah.
it requires a whole process. You got to lay the foundation and work your way up to it. So negotiating is the same way. And oftentimes there is some kind of conversation, but if you haven't laid the foundation, it's harder. But here's the good news with the 4 lever negotiating approach is it's consistent every single time. And so I'll give you one quick story. 2 companies ago, we were negotiating a big deal. My rep, if he got the deal done on time, was going to President's Club, and it was for 36,000 seats. All right, so it's a big deal back in our email marketing days. We had aligned around timing, so we were all set. The next day was end of quarter, and that's when they were going to sign. We had laid the foundation for everybody in the organization that these are the levers that drive it. And so our sponsor was literally negotiating on our behalf, which is part of the power of this. You've given them the
Mm.
tools. When somebody's like, hey, tell them to go sharpen their pencil, they can go, I know exactly how that pencil is sharpened. Here's how to do it. However, what's funny is, so that's the process, and we're good, and we got in all alignment. Well, it gets delivered on the CFO's desk the day before the end of the quarter. CFO not a part of any of this, just helicoptering in. And sure enough, he contacts the sponsor who contacts my rep and says, hey, I'm about to sign this, but I want to talk to you guys first. Cool. My rep was like, Todd, you must be on this call. Like, all right, cool. So we get on this conference call. It's pre-Zoom. And he's in Ohio. I'm here. And then the customer's in Ohio too. This guy gets on and he's like, hey, looking at this, looks good. Although we, instead of committing to 36,000 users, we want to commit to 18,000 now. And then we'll add the additional 18,000 later in the year. And I looked down at my DMs and my rep is just like, shit, like, because that was going to kill his President's Club. And so
Yeah.
I was like, put your phone on mute. But I got this, brother. And so I just took the CFO through the conversation that I would have had early, middle, late, doesn't matter. And I was like, hey, listen, I understand. Like, he told me why. And then I was like, I understand. Hey, the pricing, I know you're new to the conversation, but it's based on these 4 things. Volume, how much you buy, timing, cash, how fast you're paying, length of commitment, how long you're committing. And then we had mutually aligned around timing, and we're paying you to help us with our forecast. If you want to cut that volume in half, you can, but your price per is going to go up pretty significantly. And then when you add that additional 18,000 later in the year, it's going to be at that 18,000 price instead of 36,000. I can have the rep draw that up for you. But remember, if your concern is about whether this is going to work, you've got protections in the contract for warranty. There's service level agreements. There's termination for cause. So you're covered there if that's your worry. Otherwise, yeah, we're happy to write up the pricing and send it over. And this dude went completely silent, professional negotiator, and he was trying to break me. And I'm like, It's nothing to break. I mean, the price is the price, but it's based on these things. He
Yeah.
then said to the rep, send me over the pricing. I'll take a look. And then he hung up. Like, I don't even think he said goodbye. We put together the 18 plus 18 pricing versus the 36,000 pricing. Sure enough, he
Mhm.
signed for the first full 36,000 the next day. And my rep went to President's Club. Now, the point being there that it's consistent, right? Like, your price is your price. And it doesn't matter if it's the person at the front desk or it's your CEO of a multi-billion dollar company. One last piece of that. I trained a $2 billion company at their kickoff. I guess it was like February, March. And I found out the next day, like, the CEO sat in on it, and that somebody said they overheard the CEO using the levers in a conversation the next day. And they called me and they're like,
Cool.
holy crap, he just used the 4 levers. Like, yay!
Yeah.
It's designed to be that easy and that immediately actionable to share with everybody. It doesn't, like, there's no strategic time. Your price should be your price based on those things.
Yeah. So I love that. So we have the let the customers choose their own destiny. Let the customer negotiate on your behalf too. It's like that's how transparent this is.
Exactly.
So in terms of when the negotiation starts, I think your answer to that question is like it's at the very
Real
beginning. Like there
conversation.
is no
Yeah.
start time for this. It's like here's what it is. There's full transparency around it. So what are your thoughts then on the vendor of choice thing that you see a lot? Because that's
I mean,
I'll
again,
often ask that when someone like wants to really dig in with me. I'm like, I just want to make sure you're not looking into anyone else. And like in the back of my head, I'm thinking any smart buyer is going to tell me that I'm the vendor of choice in that moment, even if I'm not.
right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, do you make a decision without understanding the price and the variables on really anything? A vendor of choice is kind of a weird thing. It's funny. I don't know if you saw this analogy that I had posted a couple of days ago, but last week I was in New York and we went out to dinner at a restaurant called Au Cheval, which I
Okay.
don't know if you've heard of it, but their
No.
cheeseburgers are insane. Like, they're
It's like
crazy.
the $50 cheeseburger.
Well, yeah, it was $35, and then if you wanted egg on it, it's 39. Like, it's in that range.
Yeah.
And 5 of us eating dinner, 4 of us got the cheeseburger. Now, why didn't we negotiate that? Right? Like, I know this is crazy, but can you imagine sitting there and going, "Wow, that's $35. Hey, you know what? I have a budget issue. I'm going to need a discount in order for me to move forward." They'd be like, "You're at the wrong place."
Go somewhere
Or
else.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Or like, listen, I was driving down the street and there's another restaurant that sells cheeseburgers. I think it's called McDonald's. And it's $8.50 and they throw in fries and a medium drink. Uh, Match their price or we're going to go somewhere else. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and they're like, no, this is the price.
Yeah.
I think that we've just got a confidence issue in terms of if we've established value and there's other customers paying that amount, your price should be your price always to everybody,
Yeah.
anytime, vendor of choice, no vendor of choice. This is your price. These are your variables. If you don't like it, then I'm not going to have every one of my customers paying a different amount because you don't
Yeah.
like it. Right. So I think the
Yeah.
vendor of choice thing, it's irrelevant to the conversation.
So is it fair to say then with your approach, you have to be willing to walk away from the deal if they don't accept the agreed upon terms that you've kind of come up with already with the levers?
Well, yeah, exactly. If you want consistency, and I'll tell you, so one of my big clients, a big aviation company, we were negotiating a big program for this past year. They sent me their contract, but they added a paragraph in it. I don't know if you've ever heard of this type of thing, but it's called a most favored nation language, which
Hmm.
means they want the guarantee that they are paying the same or less than every other customer and reserve the right to audit if they don't believe that to be the case. Now, most people would hear that and go, no freaking way. What are you crazy? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, go ahead. That's exactly. I like my price is my price. And
Yeah.
by the way, aviation company, because you're at a high volume and you're paying me all up front and you're committing for the full year, your price is lower than everybody else's. But even if it wasn't, like, it's consistent with the levers of every other customer, I will sign that immediately. And they were like, the second, like, I think they sent it to me to just almost see if I would react to it. And I was like, that's cool. I'm
Yeah.
good. And they're like, we love you. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the way that we've got to be thinking about this is, again, you can't have every customer paying a different amount based on how well or poorly you sold it, you negotiated it. So yeah,
Yeah.
you got to be prepared to walk away if the levers aren't going to work in that particular instance. And we've done it. We've walked away from a couple of deals, big deals in my previous CRO role.
Yeah. I
And
think
we're
that's a
glad we
really
did.
big key. Yep. That's a big key, and sales leadership has to be aligned, with that as well. Um,
Well, I'll tell you one of those. So in one case, it was a massive consumer product goods company, and this deal was going to make up like 5% of our company revenue. So it was significant.
Damn. Yeah.
And I was negotiating with them. Their initials are GlaxoSmithKline. I'm just kidding. But so Glaxo. And my CEO was like, Todd, you're negotiating this. Not they're like, all right, cool. I get on and we're going through everything, and they're totally, I don't think they'd ever heard the levers before, anything like it. So they didn't know what to do with it, but they were like, all right, cool. But we need termination for convenience, right? Which is that clause that allows them to get out at any time for any reason. And so, just like every other response, concession requests, first step is to be a human being. Like, hey, what's driving that? And they're like, we have in all our vendor contracts. I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But anyway, number two is repeat all four levers. So I walked her through, hey, listen, your pricing is based on how much you buy, how fast you pay, how long you commit, when you sign. If you want termination for convenience, you can have it, but you're probably not going to like it because it represents no commitment. And as a result, your price is going to have to change dramatically. So instead of it being based on 3-year commitment, it's based on no commitment, and that's 30 to 35% higher. She told me to screw off. Basically like, sorry, Todd, we're not paying an extra dime, and we will get it. Otherwise, we're not working with you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, that's not good business for us, but that's up to you. A couple of days later, I have my one-on-one with my CEO. And he, of course, is just like, Todd, first most important thing, where's this deal? And I'm like, hey, we're still hung up on termination for convenience. But you know me, I'm a nerd with this. And he starts yelling at me. He's like, that's what you told me 2 days ago. Walk in there right now, call her and take it. Take the deal. And I'm like, that hurts me, brother. And so we ended up taking the deal. Fast forward a couple of months, we're going out raising another round, right? A B round. And we did 16 private equity pitches. We picked one that was good. We brought them in. They're doing their forensic accounting. First contract they read. Who knew? It's the one that represents 6% of our revenue. And the guy, the auditor, walks in and is just like, what's this? Termination for convenience. Are we going to find that in all your contracts? And we were like, or my CEO was like, hey, we had to take it in that instance. But it's sticky. Like, we're okay. They can't really get out easily. And they're like, well, regardless, the predictability of your revenue is not 3 years on that. It's 30 days. That's going to
Yeah.
impact your valuation. And I kind of gave them the Stewie Griffin to Brian Griffin look on the couch, just like, my CEO
Yeah.
is still angry about that look. But again, if you give in for one client and not others, it has downstream impacts. You got to play the long game on this.
Yes. Dude, so true. Um, okay. So let's dig into, I want to talk real quick on presenting the price. You have
Yeah.
some interesting things there, and I think we should save the time to really kind of go a little deeper in the four levers too, and talk about just creative things that you've seen. Um, like I'm just thinking, like with the price, like if I was presenting our training engagement, let's say, how are you presenting the four levers? Is it the, hey, here's the best price possible that you can get, and then here's what I need for that? Or is it like, let's start with the highest price possible and then talk about all the ways that we can get this down by paying faster, committing to two cohorts instead of one, et cetera. How do you suggest people present the price and like position the price?
Well, the way that I do it in my business right now is two things. And one thing I think you might find funny and you should totally steal it is always in my proposals, I break down the price as I would recommend it in their environment. So, hey, based on what you told me, I think the best approach is going to be to do these 2 workshops, do this reinforcement 2 weeks later, have these little tools in here, and here's the price, and here's the variables that drove that price, right? And that variable is the volume, how fast you're going to pay. It's based on aligning payment to the timing of delivery. The how long you're committing to this. Are we doing it for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year? And then I don't really talk about in the initial conversations the timing of the deal because that requires mutual alignment. All right.
Yeah.
So I, again, propose based on recommendation, but show them the variables. In one case, just recently, it was a European client, and they were like, Todd, how much is it going to cost for you to come over here and do this program? And one of my variables in terms of volume is how much time are you taking from me? And if I have to go to Europe, it's going to be a lot more than doing it here in the US, which is a lot more than doing it virtually. And so
Yeah.
I proposed it as Europe, but also gave him the virtual one. Right. And so that for him was really helpful because he was like, we're not going to be able to get the budget for the Europe one. Let's do the virtual. And I'm like, cool, I can do it with my shoes off. Right. So
Mm.
that's the way that I always think about it. Now, the little tip that you should steal is whenever I'm delivering a proposal, right? You deliver a proposal, the old school is always told you, don't ever just send it. And you better have a meeting to walk through it or a meeting scheduled to walk through it very soon after you deliver the proposal.
Yeah.
I want you to think through the lens of your customers for a minute. Your customers want that? Probably not. They know they're going to, like, I'm going to need to take a shower after this proposal call. That's not the way that we consume information as human beings. And so
Mhm.
a few years ago, I had a CEO of a big consulting firm here in Chicago. He reached out. We talked. It was through one of their partners. So I talked to this guy and we're talking through the programs. He's like, Todd, that sounds great. Can you send me a proposal over? And then I'm going to pull together my sales leaders and we'll schedule a couple more calls to go through it. And then like this whole process. I'm like, yeah, cool. I write up the proposal. And then what did I do? I turned on my webcam. I went split screen and I was like, Jay, thanks for reaching out. Here's what we had, like, here's the recommendation for the programs and how we do it. Here's the pricing. And here's the variables that drive that pricing. I did it in a 4-minute video form. And so I sent the proposal with the video. 2 days later, I just happened, like, we hadn't talked again. I uploaded in the Vimeo. I looked and it had been viewed 53 times. And I'm like,
Wow.
is there underwear hanging? Like, did I do, like, why am I going
Yeah.
viral in their company?
Yeah.
Well, I then talked to him and he's like, Todd, that video just saved 3 weeks, 4 meetings, and a lot of effort. All I did was take your video. I shared it with my leaders. They were all bought in. I shared it with the CFO. He's aligned on the price. He might want to adjust a couple of things, but now I know how to
Yeah.
do that. Send us over the contract. And I'm like, what just happened? So I'm an
Yeah.
advocate for why not when you send it, send a little video with an explanation around the pricing and the model and what it's based on. Give it to them, let them do it all on their own. You save them time, you save yourself anxiety, you save them the uncomfortableness of sitting through your freaking stupid proposal call, and just like
Yep.
let them make the decision on their own. More times than not, probably 20 times, I've had somebody email or text me, go, dude, that video proposal just saved me 4 meetings.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I think that's such a big thing with today's buying environment too, and how virtual your buyer is.
Yeah.
Being able to see the videos and stuff like that. Uh, let's do a little bit of a deeper dive into the 4 levers. So, with volume, timing of payment, length of commitment, timing of the deal, what are some of the things that you've seen maybe clients do, or creative ways that you've seen people do this, or if there's maybe some more nuance around like length of commitment's kind of an interesting one, for example, where it's like, okay, cool, buyer wants to negotiate, they want to pay a lower price, but we could turn a 100K deal into a 250K deal, in doing that. We can negotiate for a larger total contract value, which is like a really interesting win. What are some of the creative things that you've seen people do with the levers and all that good stuff?
Well, I think for the most part, the levers have turned out to be the levers, right? Like one of my clients is, when I said the aviation company, they're fractional jet owners. Their initials are NetJets. All right. So I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm supposed to share that or not. But anyway, uh, it's basically a SaaS offering for airplanes, right? Where
Yeah.
when you sign up, you're signing up for either a volume of hours. My dog's going crazy. Sorry about that. A volume of
All good.
hours, and you're signing up for uh, portions of planes, you're signing up for term. And so they've literally taken this and applied it to plane ownership. And so they're going in, talking to celebrities or companies that have private fleets that want to go to fractional ownership. And they've immediately applied it to the way they think about it. Their volume is percent of plane or number of hours. Timing of payment is, the way that they do it up front. They make commitments for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it is. And then they need to align around the timing because there's only so many planes that are manufactured on time. And so they need to be able to predict. And so having that alignment around the timing is super valuable to them to make sure that they're able to meet demand when it comes. You can't just create a plane through like, hey, press the button, there's another plane in the virtual printer. Like, no, it takes a long time. And so there's so many. Another one is a massive facilities management company. Their volume is number of locations, number of meals they serve, number of square foot that they're cleaning every night. That's volume. And then timing of cash is the same. Length of commitment is the same. Needing to predict is the same because it requires resources that need to be available to be able to do all this stuff. So just think about every for-profit company in the world. It's pretty consistent. There's a volume component. Cash payment means something. Commitment length means something. And that ability to predict means something. And it just seems to work very quickly in most organizations.
Where does the other stuff fit in with you know, like in SaaS, there's uh, negotiating to use your MSA instead
Right.
of the other one.
Great question. Yes.
There's like all of this stuff. Hey, we get to use you as a case study.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of
There's
the
two
other
different
things
things
that
there.
you kind of
Yes.
see? Yeah.
So let's go through the first part, which is things like using their contract, things like indemnification, limitation of liability, some of those kind of hairy language terms. It's the only time that I recommend another half lever. And what I mean by that is to be able to tell the customer that our pricing is based on volume, timing of cash, length of commitment, timing of the deal, and it's also based on a normal assumption of risk. And what I mean by that is, in my case, it's using my agreement and the parameters that are within it. When a customer tells me, "Hey, we need to use our contract," in many cases, I'll be like, "All right, cool. My price is based on these four things, and part of it, though, the 4.5 is a reasonable assumption of risk. I'm just one dude here. And so if I have to hire a lawyer to review contract language, it puts the dynamics of this deal out of whack a little bit. I'm happy to do that, but we need to adjust something else to make up for it. In so many cases, it just goes away. Same
Yeah.
thing with another client, a massive insurance company that who knew required me to have like $5 million of liability insurance for a virtual session. I'm like,
That's
what,
crazy.
what are you like? What are you talking? And so I wasn't a jerk. I was just like, hey, listen, my price is based on this. If I need to take on that level of liability insurance, especially for a virtual session, there's cost associated with it, and it puts the commercial terms dynamic out of whack a little bit. If you want to pay for it, you can, and I'll go get it. I'm cool with that. Or if you want to adjust something else, we add some programs, I'll go do it. But for this one virtual program, you're going to have to pay for it, or we need to reconsider this. And they were like, that was stupid, Todd. Thanks for pointing it out. Crossed off.
Yeah.
That happens all the time. One last example. Back in my CRO days at Power Reviews, we had a massive deal we were working on with a big telecommunications provider. They had told us, and they put the language in our contract that said we need uncapped limitation of liability, which essentially says that if we're in the ratings and review space, that if a review got through, ended up on their pages, on their products, and it cost them business. Let's say it went viral and they all of a sudden lost $10 million, $20 million, $100 million because that review, we have to write the check to pay for it. And so basically we went back and forth with them and we told them, listen, you are asking us to assume a great deal of risk. Our pricing is based on not doing that. If you want us to, we can, but we need to adjust something else. They said no. We fought back and forth, and finally we walked away from that deal, and we're glad we did. So
Yeah.
that's the only time. Now, the second part of that, Jason, is you said case studies. I have a bit of a rant about that. All right. So I want you to imagine you're going to have your kitchen remodeled, or you're going to have some big project in your home, and you evaluate contractors. You read the reviews on their website and all of that kind of stuff. And the reviews, the glowing reviews, influence your decision to go with a certain contractor.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden you get the contract from the contractor and you're about to sign it, but then you find out that all of those reviews on their website, they were paid for. Would that make you more
Mhm.
comfortable or less comfortable making this decision? Probably less. Now,
Probably
maybe
less.
this
Yeah.
is a stretch, but when we, in a business to business sense, get all the way to the goal line, customers asking for something, and we go, hey, we'll give you 10% off, which is literally taking money out of our pocket and handing it to them in exchange for you doing a case study with us. Aren't we doing the same thing? Especially if those case studies influence their decision to go with you? Aren't we telling them, hey, listen, we're
Mm.
offering to pay you for a case study just like we paid those people that you used to make your decision to come with us? I think, A, you earn your case studies, you don't pay for them. And B, it doesn't have any teeth anyway. Like if you put that in a contract, like you're going to give us a case study. If you suck, are you going to sue them to do a case study with you? Of course not. If you're awesome, you're doing amazing things with them, and you go ask them, hey, listen, you want to see us be successful. We want to highlight you and talk about how awesome you are and what you've been able to do using our products, technology, services. Do you want to do a case study together? We'll cross promote. They're probably going to do it anyway, and you didn't have to pay for it. So earn your case
Yeah.
studies, don't pay for them. Don't add marketing and case studies as a fifth lever.
Hot take. Dude, we got to
There you
run
go.
here. Todd, this is great, dude. As always, loved the deep dive on the four levers. Where can people go to grab your book and all that good stuff?
So it's Four Levers Negotiating. It's out January 27th, 2026, available wherever you buy your books. So go pre-order it now. You can always check out more on toddcaponi.com or follow along. I share a lot of nonsense on LinkedIn. And last but not least, if you liked any of the history stuff, total hobby for me, I've got a podcast called the Sales History Podcast. We just released episode number 54. So there's lots of nerdery there if you want to dig into some sales history too.